This is Brian Hartwig, Cruising Sweets and Treats. I also am known as Gizmo Duck, G-Duck OR. My license plate is currently the Smoky Bear plate with part of my last name as Twigs, Twigs. I actually found the quintessential Smoky Bear plate, Wildfire, WLDFRE, and then the plate frame of Only You Can Prevent Wildfire. And it works for more than just the actual fires. It can work for these various online digital fires like spam attacks and all that. Anyway, put in a plug for a few things as I get started here. To kind of go from eventually show and kind of learn as I go, updating my own project for a jeweler that I got in to being a part of by request for a group called Kinergy Tech. I'll show the Kinergy Tech, the Nerd Herd. I initially took my hard drive in to the Nerd Herd, which is part of Kinergy Creative, with an 8 instead of the letter A, because it was faulting. It would load, it would be recognized, but I couldn't access it. So within a week from there, that was on September 1st. Here it is October 1st, 2021. But so about a week later, I get a request if I know anything about access. Well, I kind of do. I mean, I've dabbled here and there over the years, but never really got into it. But I ended up going ahead and taking on the project a couple weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago, for Beaudet Jewelry, local jeweler that's been in the industry over 30 years. They've kind of moved locations as some will, as they need to. However, during a time period where his wife was fighting cancer and then ultimately succumbed to it, his database, whether the live database with the front end was on a server that disappeared, or if the database itself was on a different computer and a separate front end as it was created around 2013, we don't know. It just disappeared. And so I was on the task of improving that. So I'm using data that ranges from 2000 to 2005 that he created in DBase. I'm just going to go there with the Beaudet Jewelry. That he created in DBase, and then 2013 he had someone bring it into Microsoft Access. And so I took those tables and brought them in, and got the core kind of set up, kind of starting to clean it up. This was something I spent an initial week trying to see if I could use Microsoft Excel for this information, trying to bring it in, create some of these connections. It was futile. It was not going to happen as much as I wanted to because of how in depth his database was set up. So there's a lot of duplicates and some names that, like business names that are in the last name, phone numbers that like have an @ and number. So it's all messed up. So the idea at this point was to go ahead and at least create a version that they could go through that database, maybe and use it, compare it to what they have now that I think they've been using Excel, that we can kind of import those names and addresses and get this thing set up, so things are uniform. Because there's probably contact history that there are probably people that are still around town, still living, that you may want to check up on, just for historical purposes. Others, they've moved out or passed away themselves. A few of them I actually know. I was just kind of scouring. A few of them I know. So when I eventually show the data as I'm doing this, I've actually figured out how to mask those fields, text boxes, so that way that information doesn't show. I'll have the first and last name shown, but like phone numbers and addresses I won't, because who knows how valid they are or invalid. And I want to minimize that, because most templates on these things, people just make up names and addresses. I just don't want to risk that, and take the time to create some phony names and addresses. I want to actually use what he's got. So for reference purposes, I'm just going to mask the critical information other than name and address. So eventually, once I got this database to a point where I had the tables, yeah, it's kind of a funky. Notice I look up, and that's because I currently have my setup, because I wasn't really ever prepared to do this, is that my monitor is actually up top of my hutch. Extended, my TV is used as an extension, so I actually took a photo just for reference. Yeah, it's messy and all that fun stuff, because it was pretty much a throw it together when I put this thing out and years ago, and then at some point I was with the computer that's down below in the back, I modified to a server that I was trying to do live streaming. So it's just been sitting there. I haven't really run any updates on it. I probably got to get back to it, because the prior employment, I didn't really have the time to. I mean, I've dealt with it, but I didn't really have the time to properly do it. And then naturally life goes on. The laptop that's got the paper on it, I've basically got it. So I use, because a lot of my email is on server. So I've got a program called, I've got Mozilla's Thunderbird, because Firefox is the browser, running. So it'll actually filter email when it comes in. So when I get on my phone, it's pre-filtered. When I use K9 Mail to look at my mail, when I can look at it, same thing. I haven't really had a constant business purpose, so I haven't really had the need to look at the emails. They just kind of go and all that. So yeah, when you're doing projects, especially the bigger they are, I highly recommend not putting your second monitor up to where you're going to be doing like this, where you're stretching. I'm going to take a screenshot, see what that does. Save my screenshot of me taking a photo. But yeah, it's better to have your second or third monitors at about eye level with the mid, so it's more comfortable. So when you're looking at it, no, this is just kind of a what not to set up. I'll probably eventually figure out on readjusting. So yeah, my bedroom is my home office. Oh well. Back to the laptop view. So yeah, if my mouse goes off screen, it goes up there, and then I'm like, where is it? And I look up. So at this point, I'm going to work on setting up so it always minimizes the double clicking on any of these tabs, as a lot of people say. It's how you minimize. It's kind of an interesting way that you have to do that. Or through code, you can actually go through and upon open, load, whatever, start, you can have this minimize, because versus just hide altogether, unless you're setting up a front end where you don't want people to have any access to the nav bars and the objects. So I've actually got it set up, or just for quick reference, I've got all the tables, searches that I've brought in, lookups, filters, custom filter that I'll show later, where the filter thing from Richard Rost, Computer Learning Zone. He uses one table. I got it set up so it uses a secondary. And as I say, with that union query, I'll show how I've got that set up later. But this is kind of base overview of where I'm at. So various forms go along with it. So with Richard Rost, Computer Learning Zone, it's definitely worth investing in his courses if you really want to get some true understanding to either refresh or improve on your own or somebody projects, whether it's personal or for somebody else. So that's basically it in a nutshell for getting started. And then I'll get to the point where I've got start going through the code and adjusting forms and kind of help remind myself of what I'm doing by sharing with you guys. And go from there.